When it comes to woodworking, dealing with sawdust is a non-stop battle. And if you don't have a good process for dealing with all that sawdust, it can feel like you're spending more time cleaning the shop than actually working on projects. And you're a woodworker, not a dust worker, right? In this video, I'm going to show you how I manage the sawdust in my shop to keep my shop somewhat clean. So if you are a beginner woodworker or someone who just wants to up your dust collection game, this video is for you. Hey everyone, I'm Jake, and I've been building out of my workshop for the past 6 years or so, but I've been a woodworker for much longer. Since woodworking is only a hobby for me, I've had to get creative on how I manage sawdust without spending crazy money on huge dust collection systems. While my dust collection system is simple, it is quite effective. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to ask you to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Then I'll show you the setup I have, I'll talk about why I built it that way, and then I'll provide some tips and tricks so you can get your own dust collection process set up quickly and effectively. After all, the goal is to do woodworking, not to do dust collecting. My system starts with a 1.5 horsepower Shopbox single stage dust collector in the corner of my shop, with 2 PVC pipe rods along the back wall and down the center of the shop. When I first bought the dust collector, I had a single hose that I would move from machine to machine as I needed to use it. Since then, I've upgraded my system using 4-inch PVC sewer pipe around the shop. If you're looking to buy some PVC pipe like I did, make sure you buy the 4-inch PVC sewer pipe, not Schedule 40. The sewer pipe is way cheaper than Schedule 40, and at my local store, it's actually stored in the garden area, not the plumbing section, so don't get confused. When I designed the layout of my dust collection system, I designed it with the intent to be able to modify, expand, or add drops anywhere along this back wall and down the side of my shop. This main trunk comes up the dust collector and tees off at the doorway where it's aligned at the right-hand edge of my table saw and outfeed table. I then added a drop down to the side of the outfeed table so that I can still cross-cut any length material without hitting the PVC pipe. At the bottom of this drop, I have a blast gate tree with 3 different blast gates for various tools at the bottom of it. The first one is dedicated to the table saw, while the second one is shared between the jointer and the planer, and then the last one is typically used for just cleaning up the floor. It just kind of sticks out here. I plug in my shop vac hose and it works really well for that. I'll drop a link in the description down below to all of the components that I used in my dust collection system if you want to check those out. Over on the side of my shop near my workbench, I have the end of the line here where the dust collection trunk drops down into a single blast gate. Currently the blast gate services my shop vac hose, which is used for sanding or cleaning up this side of the shop. But I have plans to add a Y fitting or two, which will service the drill press and the bandsaw someday. Before we talk about the dust collection system that I have, if you have any questions or suggestions for a better dust collection system, leave a comment down below. I'm always looking to learn how to do things more efficiently, and I think we can all benefit from each other's knowledge and experiences in this area. Okay, jumping back to the dust collector itself, let's talk about why I picked this particular dust collector and the modifications I plan to make to it. As I mentioned earlier, this is a 1.5 horsepower Shopbox W1685 dust collector. Originally this system came with a filter bag, but I threw that piece of junk in the trash in favor of this Grizzly T23129, which is a replacement canister filter for the Grizzly G0583Z dust collection system. That was a mouthful. Before I get into why I bought the Grizzly, I want to point out that if you have any dust collector with a filter bag, you should definitely consider upgrading to a cartridge or canister style filter. A cartridge filter like this one typically has many pleats in the side, effectively increasing the amount of surface area with which the system can filter. This is a huge impact on efficiency, especially as the filter begins to take on more and more dust. The filters are not particularly expensive, but many of the aftermarket filters require you to either make some sort of adapter or modify the dust collector itself in order to make it fit. I chose the Grizzly because I knew it would fit right out of the box. Remember, my goal here is to do woodworking, not to do dust collecting design or whatever. A really cool side effect from buying the Grizzly is that it includes a paddle inside that helps clear the pleats from the inside, so you can operate at peak efficiency. Before I move on, no, I do not intend to add a cyclone to my dust collection system anytime in the foreseeable future. Adding a cyclone cone to a single-stage dust collector like this shop box is just not a good move. A cyclone cone is used in a dust collection system to separate the larger chips from the fine dust. This keeps the larger chips from clogging up the filter on the dust collection side. However, while a cyclone cone, barrel, vortex, or other style chip collector like this Dust Deputy or Rockler dust separator separates the chips from the dust, it actually reduces the total amount of airflow that your dust collection system can pull in. In many cases, they can reduce the airflow of your dust collector system by as much as 50%. In my opinion, this is simply not acceptable for my shop, which is why I chose to upgrade my dust collector with a canister filter, and then just make sure I am diligent about keeping the filter itself clean and clear. Doing this not only saves money from not buying the cyclone cone and space in the shop, but keeps my dust collector running as efficient as possible with minimal additional effort and cost. In case anyone out there is wondering why I'm talking about efficiency and airflow, when I have an expandable hose kinked at 90 degrees right out of the intake side of my blower unit, well, you got me. This is one of the biggest flaws in my system currently, and something I'm working on correcting. I'm trying to get a hold of some 6-inch PVC fittings that would allow me to come out of this blower unit and go straight up to meet with the main trunk of my system. Eliminating this expandable hose will probably have a pretty big impact on my system efficiency. Just to recap really quick, my goal in designing my dust collection system was that it would be efficient, cost-effective, and require minimal interaction to keep it up and running at peak performance. And that brings us to some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. When you're looking to buy a dust collection system or machine, start by considering your space and budget constraints. This is one of those situations where I don't think you need the highest quality tool you can afford, but I also don't recommend getting the bottom of the barrel brand either. Talking about you, Harbor Freight. If you want to save money and have a very small shop, consider a 1 horsepower wall-mounted dust collector and simply move the hose to or around each machine as you need to use it. However, if you have any intention of trying to plumb the dust collector into your shop with permanent connections to each of your machines, you absolutely need to be looking at a 1.5 horsepower or larger system, because these smaller machines simply don't have enough power to pull large amounts of air through all of that PVC pipe. Diving into the details a little bit, when you're designing your permanent pipe system, whether metal or PVC, avoid using 90-degree elbows or tees. Think of how the air moves through each of the pipelines and how bends, irregularities, or changes in diameter will negatively impact the flow of air. Instead, try to use 2 45-degree fittings in order to smooth out the change in direction. Speaking of fittings, try not to add too many Y connections, blast gates, or tees, unless you have a specific plan for each of those items. In my experience, by adding those extra pieces for future machines, I found they just collect sawdust and increase the number of leaks in your system, which decreases your efficiency overall. And speaking of connections, I used to use plastic blast gates since they were the cheapest and easiest to find. Unfortunately, I found that they can get clogged with sawdust sometimes, which results in them not closing off all the way, and that causes leaks. Plus they break really easily. That's why I decided to buy a bunch of metal blast gates like these, which are designed so that they don't get clogged. In order to make sure I get a nice strong fitting, I will sometimes even drive a screw into the side of the aluminum. That way everything stays connected, nice and tight. Now that you have your dust collection process all dialed in, you're really gonna like this next video I have queued up for you right over here. So head on over and I'll see you in the next video.